Miners need to know how to perform their jobs safely, and they need to know how to recognize and control hazards in their workplaces. Effective training is essential to protect the health and safety of miners.
It's important that everyone's educated, not just your health and safety person who's supposed to be in charge, but each and every one that's on the job site, whether that be the loader operator, whether that be the guy who drives the skid steer or the fellow who runs the water truck. It's important that they all can identify hazards, that they all know the proper PPE and all the precautions that keep them safe.
Training requirements for metal and non-metal surface aggregate mining operations, regardless of size, are covered under 30 CFR Part 46.
Maine is made up of a number of small operators, small miners, small companies that have 2 or 3 people in a spot. Maybe they only have 10 in their company, or maybe they have 50, still not quite large enough to warrant having a health and safety director and someone to focus on that. It's very challenging to a small company.
With the portability of the equipment we're using, these operations can be relocated at a moment's notice, put it on a trailer, haul it to another pit or quarry, and be unloaded in operation in a relatively short amount of time. It can almost happen overnight, and a lot of times it does. So the site-specific information has to be generated fairly quickly, and it's flexible enough so that it can be used at multiple locations.
Part 46 is a performance-oriented rule, and many other requirements allow flexibility to decide how and when your mine's training will be conducted, which topics are appropriate for your mining operations, and who will conduct the training. With a performance-oriented rule like Part 46, there is more than one way to meet its requirements, and the way you comply may differ from another mining operation.
Was designed to be a very flexible and adaptable document. The intent was to make it very easy to adapt it to your needs. Obviously a mine with 20 employees on it is going to be quite a bit different with a guy with 1 or 2 or 3 guys on there.
Under Part 46, every aggregate mine, no matter how small, must develop and implement a written plan that contains effective programs for training new miners, newly hired experienced miners, miners for new tasks, annual refresher training, and site-specific hazard awareness training. Keep in mind that Part 46 was developed to provide aggregate mining operations flexibility to tailor their training programs to the specific needs of their miners and operations. This affords your mine the ability to conduct effective training that meets your mine's specific needs.
We have a very good training plan. It's pretty flexible, so we're able to incorporate some of our construction activities, which involved moving of equipment, job site traffic control, excavations, those types of things into our MSHA training.
Our off season, if you will, Maine, it's a little hard to stay in full production January, February, March, so we do a lot of our training during that time of year. And we try to make sure that it's varied from year to year, that there's new information that's applicable to the work we may be doing or any upcoming work we may be doing. And we just want to make sure everybody has the information they need to do their job safely.
Training must be conducted by a competent person. So, what makes a person competent to train other miners under Part 46? A competent person is a person who is designated by the production operator or independent contractor who has the ability, training, knowledge, or experience to provide training to miners in his or her area of expertise. The competent person must be able to effectively communicate the training subject to the miners and evaluate whether the training given to miners is effective. Operators and independent contractors are responsible for determining who is competent to instruct in the subjects listed in the training plan. And also remember to list the competent person or persons in your training plan.
Part of our training plan is making sure that the competent people that are listed on our Part 46 training plan are indeed just that. They get extra training, more above and beyond any of the other employees, because ultimately they are responsible for themselves and everyone in the mine. So they will typically go every year to extra training, watch extra videos, etc. Get training from a manufacturer on whether it's loader or excavator operation, crusher operation, screens. So it's very important that they get that extra training to make sure that everyone else around them is safe.
You may conduct your own training programs or may arrange for training to be conducted by state or federal agencies, associations of production operators or independent contractors, miners' representatives, consultants, manufacturers' representatives, private associations, educational institutions, or other training providers. Training methods may consist of classroom instruction, instruction at the mine, interactive computer-based instruction, or other innovative training methods, alternative training technologies, or any combination of training methods.
To meet the requirements of Part 46 training plan, we have a plan that is very fluid and liquid. It's constantly changing to work with the materials we have, whether it's videos, manufacturers training. We also have main aggregate training with spring thaws, typically annually. We do our annual training.
We also do toolbox talks on a weekly basis that, if you attend every toolbox talks for 52 weeks, that's an additional 12 hours of training. That's all documented on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's a little difficult to track an individual, but it's above and beyond. It's belt and suspenders type thing that we have. So it goes above the minimum.
It's a chance for everybody to get together once a week and talk about not only safety but any other issues that might have come up on a job site or in a pit or in a quarry. It also gives a chance for the employees to voice any concerns they might have about safety or materials that they may need or anything like that.
So training is not just a once a year issue. It's constant. It's, if not daily, weekly, and it's very important to keep people's mind on safety at all times. Even when you're going home, it should be on your mind.
We're sharing the stories about miners that have lost their life or have been severely injured, and those kinds of resources. When you're telling the story to an individual who does this every day and has been for 30 years, and they're realizing that the bulk of the injuries are happening, some of the fatalities are happening with the men that have the most experience, because they've been doing something a certain way and getting away with it for many years, but on this one particular occasion they may not have gotten away with it. And so we really emphasize taking personal responsibility, and the guys respond to that.
New miner training, 46.5. Each new miner must receive 24 hours of training as described in Part 46.5.
The first thing a new miner is going to get is site-specific hazard training, so that he's familiar with the specific hazards to the site that he's working at. He's also going to get a tour of the pit or quarry, just a general familiarization with how the equipment works and just the whole process.
We'll start them out in a situation that will give us a lot of opportunity to evaluate what their skills really are. And that typically means they start out in the field, not in a piece of equipment. We want them to understand all processes of the operation, and we feel the best way for that to start is with boots on the ground. And then we will continue to evaluate their process, their aptitude, how they do. Once we feel comfortable with putting them in a piece of equipment, we'll put them in a less stressful situation in a pit that doesn't have as much volume and or traffic, along with a seasoned supervisor to evaluate their performance in the field.
The new miner, you know, after he's received site-specific hazard training and had a tour of the pit or quarry and is familiarized with the equipment, he's going to be working under the direct supervision of a competent person until he's achieved the required 24 hours of training in 90 days.
Newly hired experienced miner training, Part 46.6. Unlike new miner training, newly hired experienced miner training does not need to have a minimum number of hours, further described in Part 46.6. New task training, Part 46.7. New task training must address the safety and health aspects and safe work procedures specific to that task, further described in Part 46.7. Annual refresher training, Part 46.8. Each miner must receive 8 hours of refresher training at least once every 12 months and must include instruction on changes at the mine that could adversely affect the miner's health or safety, further described in Part 46.8.
There's a minimum of 8 hours they have to do annually, but most of our guys in the pits, they probably have 12 to 16 hours. We get those through annual refreshers in the winter, having people come in and talk, having DVDs.
Site-specific hazard awareness training, Part 46.11. You must provide site-specific hazard awareness training to any person who is not a miner but is present at the mine site. Persons who need site-specific hazard training include office or staff personnel, scientific workers, delivery workers and customers, including commercial over-the-road truck drivers, maintenance or service workers who do not work at the mine site for frequent or extended periods, vendors or visitors, further described in Part 46.11.
We also have a copy of the mine rules. You can see on some of the pits and quarries here have a list of rules: wear proper PPE, stay in your truck while you're loaded, those types of things.
At each of our gravel pits, we have a board listing the speed limit, and we usually use 19 miles an hour just because it kind of catches their eye, with the CB channel that they're supposed to be on that the loader operator is using, as well as just making sure they're telling them to stay in their trucks. And we use that to assist us with the site-specific training. That way, not every dump truck has to jump out of their vehicle every time they come in to sign off on that site-specific training plan.
Training records, Part 46.9. Part 46 requires that the mine operator or independent contractor record and certify that miners have received health and safety training. A record must be kept for miners for each training class. Each training record must be certified upon completion of new miner, newly hired experienced miner, annual refresher, upon completion by miners of site-specific hazard awareness training, and at least once every 12 months for task training.
Documentation is really everything. I mean, if there's no documentation, it never happened. So we want to make sure that we do have that documentation in place.
The ongoing annual training, the new miner training and things like that, we want to make sure that all our documentation is in place, that it's accurate, that it's meaningful and applicable to the work that the people are going to be doing in our pits and quarries. So we want to make sure all that backup information is available so that if, well, first and foremost, so they have the information they need to do their jobs well. And secondarily, if MSHA comes in to do an inspection, we want to make sure that they're happy with what we've been doing and that we're in compliance with Part 46.
We all want everyone to go home safely each night, and the more training we can give them, the better. I mean, you can never overtrain someone. I mean, we give all these guys opportunities throughout the year, and especially in the wintertime, to come into our office, all paid, and we'll give them pay them hourly, even if they're on vacation or on layoff for the winter. We always make sure they're paid for coming in and doing the training.
And typically, the other thing that happens in our safety meetings, as we discuss these materials, the guys will get into dialogue with themselves, you know, about certain situations. They'll even hold themselves accountable. And it really comes down to that. It comes down to each one of us taking personal responsibility for safety. You know, we can do the education and we can provide the resources and we can assist with the inspections. However, it really comes down to the workers taking responsibility and helping one another and watching out for one another. We really have that sort of culture that lives in this company, and it's a really wonderful thing.